Greetings! For today's episode, we're going to hear a story. The story is entitled Jesus Feeds the 5,000. It can be found on the Bible on John chapter 6 verses 1 to 15 and Luke chapter 9 verses 11 to 17. This story is adapted from Give Your Gift, God Will Use It by Jennifer Edwards. On a beautiful day, a young boy carrying his picnic lunch was skipping along the soft grass along a dusty road. He saw many people gathering on a hill by the lake just up ahead, so being curious, he took his small sack lunch and he decided to join them. His mind was racing with questions as he darted in and out through the crowd, trying to make his way to the front so he could see just exactly what was happening. What's going on? I wonder why there are so many people here. Is it a big party? Were some of the questions going through the boy's mind. He sucked his breath and scrunched himself as small as possible to squeeze through the thick of the crowd. The boy nudged people to the left and right and occasionally stumbled over someone's foot as he scrambled through the throng, but he finally made his way to the front where he discovered the reason for the huge gathering. A man named Jesus and some of his friends had arrived in a small fishing boat. The crowd of people was clamoring to get a good look at him. Seeing the great multitude, Jesus and his friends decided to stay in the boat. Jesus stood up in the little boat and welcomed the people. He knew they had come to see him and he wasn't going to disappoint them. The people in the crowd were edging themselves closer and closer so they would be able to hear what was Jesus saying. Minutes passed and even hours, but the people didn't grow tired of listening to Jesus. They had never heard anyone as interesting as this man. He had so many wonderful stories to tell, and they were hanging on to his every word. As evening drew near, one of the disciples turned to Jesus and asked, "Shouldn't we send them away now? It is getting late, and none of them have eaten anything the entire day." Much to his surprise, Jesus answered him, "No, do not send them away. You find food to feed them." Looking around at the crowd that had continued to grow larger and larger and hungrier, the disciple was a little confused and bewildered. "But Jesus," he exclaimed, "there is no way we can feed this many people. It would take about 8 months to get enough food to satisfy this large crowd." As the disciples looked around the crowd, wondering how they would ever be able to follow Jesus' wishes, one of the disciples saw the small boy with his lunch. The disciple knelt down and asked kindly, "Would you be willing to share your lunch?" The boy jumped and down in excitement and joyfully answered, "For Jesus, I will gladly give it all." The disciple took the sack to Jesus and said, "I found a little boy who is willing to give us his lunch. It is small, but there it is." Another disciple spoke up, "There are only 5 small loaves of bread and 2 tiny fish in there. How is that supposed to feed all these people?" Jesus didn't take time to explain. He wanted each person to see for himself what was going to happen next. Jesus simply took the lunch. He broke the bread and fish into pieces and he blessed it. Then he gave it to the disciples and told them, "Feed the people." Even though they knew there wasn't going to be enough for everyone, they also knew it was better to obey Jesus than to argue with him. They scattered themselves around the crowd and started passing out the pieces of fish and pieces of bread. They walked and walked, stooping down to hand the food to the hungry people sitting on the hillside. They were so busy that they didn't even notice that their baskets were not getting empty. Finally, when everyone had eaten enough to fill them up and it started getting very late, the crowd started dwindling as people began to go back to their own homes. Jesus told his disciples to pick up baskets and collect all the leftovers so that nothing would be wasted. The disciples were startled as they stared at the sight before their eyes. As they gathered the leftovers, there was a buzz of excitement. How amazing it is that Jesus could take a small boy's lunch and feed all these hungry people! One exclaimed. Yeah, and I've already picked up a whole basket of pieces over here. Another yelled back. My basket is almost full also, said another with awe. When they finished, they took it all to Jesus and began to count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12 baskets left over. Wow! What miracle Jesus had performed right before their very eyes. 2 little fish and 5 small loaves of bread had fed over 5,000 people with plenty of food to spare. Now, at this juncture, I want you to think. I have 6 process questions and you are going to answer them. Number 1, why did the crowd gather on the hillside? Number 2, why did the disciples want to send the people home? Number 3, what was in the little boy's lunch? Number 4, what did the disciple ask the little boy to do? Number 5, did the little boy want to share his lunch? And number 6, how many people shared the little lunch? So just recap, okay? Now, remember, the importance or the lesson of this story is that you are never too young to offer your gift to God. And I want you also to learn this verse. And Jesus said unto them, I am the bread of life. He that cometh to me shall never hunger, and he that believeth in me shall never thirst. John chapter 6, verse 35. And that is all for our episode for today. Stay healthy and God bless.